Garry Tonon, Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones, they all fought one man named Vinny Magalhães, and they all tried to break his leg. Garry tried to do it with an outside heel hook. Gordon tried to do it with an inside heel hook. Neither of these worked, and Gordon actually ended up losing to Vinny. Then Craig Jones comes along and ends up being successful with his own inside heel hook. So this video is attempting to answer the reason of why Craig was successful when Gordon and Garry were not. If you would like to support the channel, check the Patreon link below. And if you would like to join the Discord, shoot me a message on Instagram and I will send you that link. Now, I received a comment asking me to go more in depth on leg lock defenses and counter leg locking. And I've already done a couple videos on that. I'll leave those links in the description below. But they also sent a link to a video from BJJ Scout, which broke down how Vinny Magalhães liked to defend inside Senkaku. And this was ultimately the inspiration for this video, so I wanted to give credit where credit is due, and I'll leave that BJJ Scout link in the description below. Now, when we're trying to determine why Craig Jones was successful, I think it's important to understand what Vinny's general strategy is when defending heel hooks. So to me, it looks like his general strategy is to build height by coming up to his knees and then work to counter leg lock. So in the first clip here, he counters by putting Gordon in 50-50 as opposed to inside Senkaku. But a lot of times it'll be more of an obvious threat on his opponent's legs to ultimately escape the position. And this is very similar to the standard defense to an omoplata, where we don't want to be flattened out on our stomach. We want to build height and maybe even counter leg lock them. Now, if this doesn't go as planned for Vinny, it seems like he likes to pressure back into his opponent and not allow them to extend their hips and get the finish. Now, I am not someone who's very flexible, so I would probably still end up tapping to this. But Vinny is someone who is very flexible and is okay and comfortable in this position. It's similar to stacking someone in an armbar, where if they're not able to extend their hips, even if they have their arm, your arm is safe. Now, as Vinny implemented this strategy a few times against Gordon, I think Gordon kind of lost a little faith in the position and stopped trying to go for heel hooks as the match went on. So clearly this is an effective strategy when dealing with inside Senkaku. But what about outside heel hooks? And to me, I think this strategy is a bit more risky when dealing with outside heel hooks, because as you go to build height, a lot of times you're building height in a way that exposes your heel to your opponent. Now, if you're already standing, that's different. You're able to keep your foot flat on the ground, monitor your opponent's feet, and begin to pass. If you're already on the ground and find yourself in outside heel hook danger, I think a safer approach would be to bring your other foot into play, and you can see how annoying that is for Gordon in this scenario here. But again, Vinny is someone who is very flexible and comfortable in a situation where his heel is wrapped. So his strategy remains the same. He builds height and freezes knee line right away if possible. If not, he'll go to a counter leg lock. If neither of those work and he has his heel wrapped, he'll pressure back into you to prevent you from extending your hips to finish the heel hook. So now that we understand Vinny's general strategy to defending heel hooks, we can start to formulate our own strategy to counter his. And I'm not going to pretend to be a scientist here, but outside heel hooks are not as severe of a break as an inside heel hook. And this dude didn't even tap when Craig Jones snapped his leg with an inside heel hook. So I highly doubt we're going to get Vinny to tap to any form of outside heel hook. And with inside heel hooks, he's kind of proven to be very effective at defending the inside Senkaku position. So that leaves us with 50-50, which is a position that Gordon doesn't really play too much in, and oftentimes you see him transferring to outside ashi when possible to defend 50-50. However, we've seen Craig use 50-50 before in competition with success. And luckily for us, Chael Sonnen was nice enough to post this video, which is basically a conversation between Vinny and Craig after the match. So let's listen in to what they have to say.
It's because it slipped, but I usually do really well with the counter because like my foot goes really far, right? And then I usually get counters off that.
So basically Vinny just confirmed what we talked about already, that he is very flexible. So when he finds himself in a leg lock battle, he likes his odds in testing his flexibility against yours and trying to counter leg lock you.
When people go to my feet,
I was worried. I was
count.
like, I was thinking 50-50 to keep me low, but then I was like,
then I would have had a counter, yeah.
Now Craig chimes in and says his strategy was to go for 50-50 to keep Vinny low, but the downside to that strategy was it gave Vinny the opportunity to counter leg lock him. And we can see this is exactly what Craig did. He found himself in the same situation as Gordon, and where Gordon took his outside leg and threaded it in for inside Senkaku, Craig took his inside leg and threw it to the outside to enter into 50-50. Now, Craig did have an inside Senkaku entry later on in the fight, but honestly, I think Vinny's leg was pretty jacked at that point. It was probably hard for him to defend the way he would have liked, and the damage had already been done because of 50-50. Now, 50-50 tends to be a live by the sword, die by the sword type of position. And Craig said in his interview that he was afraid of the counter leg lock potential Vinny would have from 50-50. But Craig said he decided to go with 50-50 to keep Vinny down. Now, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what Craig means by this, but I'm trying to figure it out in this video with you all. The primary people I study are John Danaher and Gordon Ryan, and I don't think either of these people advocate 50-50 as much as someone like maybe Ryan Hall or Lachlan Giles or even Craig Jones. So basically what I'm going to try and do is connect some dots from instructionals from these two and see if we could figure it out. Inside Senkaku is a great finishing position, but when we're backside and have the inside Senkaku foot configuration, we're not able to prevent the stack that Vinny loves so much. Primarily because our top leg in this scenario isn't able to drive directly into the back of Vinny's hamstring. Now compare this to a position like backside 50-50 where we're able to drive our legs into the legs of our opponent to keep even heavier people off of us and ultimately get the finish. And you can even see at one point in the match where Gordon is struggling to get the finish from inside Senkaku, he tries to transfer his legs to backside 50-50, but Vinny ultimately ends up escaping the position. But I think that gives us a little insight into how to solve this problem of stacking. So I think 50-50 makes it difficult for Vinny to stack Craig in the same way that he did Gordon. And I think that's what Craig meant by it kept Vinny low. Now, the downside to 50-50 is that there are counter leg locks available to Vinny, and he goes for them right away, which I can imagine for Craig is a very scary thing. But like we talked about from half guard, a dominant grip like an arm drag grip is hard to get. But if someone is willingly reaching, then it makes it much easier. And the way you get someone to willingly reach is to give them something. And in Craig's case, he gave his opponent the ability to counter leg lock. So instead of worrying so much about keeping his heel safe, Vinny's focus is on getting Craig's heel for himself. So that allows Craig to more easily spin underneath and dig for Vinny's heel. And because we're in a 50-50, it makes it much harder for Vinny to stack, so Craig is able to get the break. So I hope you guys found that video helpful. Please consider subscribing and sharing the video. It really helps us out a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.